born and raised here. So I grew up in Old Orchard, so walking distance from this church. So I've been here my whole life, baptized, confirmed, married, 3 kids baptized here. So I've been here for quite some time. The only time I was away was at Cincinnati. So other than that, Hope's always been a part of where I've come from. So we've been blessed, obviously, growing up here in this church. It's a beautiful church. Been here since I moved to Old Orchard, since my family came here in '80. We've been members here at Hope. So I've always appreciated and loved what Hope's had to offer. But from growing up at Old Orchard Elementary, Jesu, St. Francis, always came back to Hope. So one thing we're going to take a look at, and it's not a traditional temple talk, it's something of a step chart. I don't know if you guys recall, they're passing it out in the aisles, but it's something we used to do here at Hope, and it's been a while. I think it's pre-COVID, so it goes back a little bit. But if you look at the quotes up on the screen, everything we have comes from the love Jesus has for us. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. Similar to this coin that we got from Pastor Chuck. That's your pocket coin. It has the same verse up there. In Luke, you hear Jesus say, where your treasure is where your heart will also be. I mentioned Cincinnati, I went away. I married my wife, but she invited me to church in 2003. So in college, at Cincinnati, the girl who said, you want to go to church? That's the girl I married. So when I came back here, she came here Easter of '03. It was the first time she walked through Hope's doors. So we've been at Hope for quite some time. But on this chart, it kind of just walks through, and you see the steps up here, and we're going to go through it. I'm not going to spend too much time on each step, but again, it's just the concept of growth. You know, everyone has a level of giving, and it's not about what you give, whether it's 2 coins or whether it's the big cow. Everyone has that gift of what they want to give. So if you look at this, you have the steps from the bottom all the way up to the top, and the question is just more about growth. When you look at Hope and looking at last year's numbers, there were 35 members. If you want to write it in the blanks, I'm not sure if it's blank on the sheet, but there were 35 members who give anywhere up to $5 a week. So when you think about that, you know, that's kind of taking one maybe less trip to Starbucks when you think of it on a weekly basis. You know, what does it cost to go to someplace like that? There's 35 members in that range. When you move up to the next chart, you know, $5 to $10, I would say it would be like a Happy Meal or getting a value meal, but it's getting kind of pricey if you go to fast food. But there's 15 members here at Hope that are given in that range on a weekly basis. So as you kind of click through these things, it's just a breakdown of where members are at and where they're at in their giving in life. The next step chart, going $10 to $20, it's 13 members. And I won't go through each and every one of these. I'll click through so you can get the numbers. But again, it's more about growth, where you're at, and kind of what the Lord is calling you to just reflect upon. You know, when I joined this church, I mentioned I've been through confirmation. I was baptized here, married here. Outside of weddings and funerals, I would say chirp was one of the more impactful things I did here at this church. But I never listened to Christian music. So 2010, I learned what K-Love was, and I started giving in 2010 to K-Love. But every week when they do that, what is it, their weekly week of giving, and they have their pledge drive, I switch the channel. Put on classic rock, something else. It's like, you know what, it's about giving. I'm going to switch the channel because that's not something I'm looking to do. Even though I give willingly there, I just don't want to hear it week to week. But as you go up these step charts and look, you know, everyone has a level of what they're comfortable and where they're giving. You know, $20 to $30 a week, 16 members. 7 members in the $30 to $40 a week. 11 members in the $40 to $50 a week. And I'll click through a little quicker, but again, it's all about growth and where you're at today, currently. 12 members at this level, 19 members giving up to $100 on a weekly basis. 11 members giving $100 to $150 a week. 3 members giving between $150 and $200. 8 members giving $200 and up. So again, that's the step chart filled out from the top to bottom. So that's kind of where we're at as a congregation, looking at the pledge cards that came in 2024. This back side of the sheets, where the kind of the math comes to it, and I know some people could look at Excel or look at QuickBooks all day. Some people don't know what that means. So looking at it from just a pure number of where things stand, and I'll just kind of highlight one. You see this $1,000 of weekly income. So if you have a household that maybe makes $80,000, standard deductions 30, they might be in that 30 giving to their work, saving in their plan. They might be given to taxes, city, everything else. But if you take 50,000, divide it by that 4 times and say, okay, well, that's that $1,000 of weekly income. You know, when you look at someone who might have 50,000 left over, there's $1,000 a month, and it goes across the range. You know, you read the Old Testament, it tells a lot about tithing, that 10%. The New Testament's more about where your heart is. You know, if you read about charity, I pulled up the Bible app and switched to, you know, what does giving say? And I got 2,300 hits. So the Bible app, if you want to read about what giving says, open the Bible app, type in the word giving, and then 2,300 results. So there's quite a few things in the Bible when it comes to giving. So the Old Testament talks quite a bit about the tithing side. You know, so for someone in that highlighted category, that's $100 if their weekly income was $1,000. The New Testament talks more about the charity piece of it, where the heart is. Give where your heart is. So again, the question, and it's up on the screen, is where are you in the chart in the weekly giving? If you were to circle where you're at on that chart, could you move over to the block one time, to the left, one place? That's a 1% growth. So again, it's more about just looking at it from a growth aspect. Where you're at today, and are you called to potentially give a little bit more? What percent of your income is God calling each of us to give? And that's a personal conversation with the Lord. So again, I'm not going to tell you where you sit on that chart. The chart's there, you have the chart there, and it also gives you that breakdown. But again, it's more about where you're at today and where would you like to go. But again, giving is a personal conversation. If you have questions, like I mentioned, you can open the Bible. You can open the Bible app and ask what giving is. You could ask what money is, and you can see how many results kick up. But again, that's a personal conversation. But having been a member here, we've always been generous here. We love hope. So I just wanted to give this conversation. And the step chart's a nice thing of looking at it from where you're at today. And if I were to just move over one box to the left, where does that put me? So that's the presentation in a nutshell. Consecration Sunday, though, is in 2 weeks. So again, if you haven't turned in your card, an estimated giving thing will be given out, but also there's the brunch for RSVP for coming to the meal. So thank you very much.